Okay, so 2019 question number 3 on the macro test, it says, assume that households in econ land increase their savings for retirement. And so assume households in econ land increase their savings for retirement. Letter A then says, using a curricular graph of the loanable funds market, show how the increase in savings will affect the equilibrium interest rate. And so the answer for A then is going to be a loanable funds graph that looks like so. Supply of loanable funds, demand for loanable funds. Here is real interest. This is the big difference between this graph and the money market graph. Here's the quantity. And so this was our original interest rate. And so this is your starting point. This is what we call the base graph. And so even if you don't know what to do, draw the base graph because you're going to get some points for that for sure. Then you would have gotten 1 point for the base graph here. So then it says, show what happens to the interest rates. And so in this instance, then, if savings increases, that means the supply of loanable funds increases. Because that's the given that they tell us. Assume that households increase their savings. And so here's what happens. The supply increases. And as a result, it says, show what happens to real interest rates. So real interest rates go down. There's your answer for letter A. Just like so. So letter D then says, based solely on the real interest rate change identified in part A, what will happen to Econoland's purchases of foreign assets? And so what this translates to then is a question over interest rates. And so if interest rates are down here then relative to other nations, then what that means is they're going to move money into the foreign world. And as a result, then what you'll see is that this country, Econoland or Econoland, whatever it's called, it says based solely on the real interest rate change, what will happen to Econoland's purchases of foreign assets? It will increase. It will increase because the Econland will want to save its money or purchase assets overseas to take advantage of the increased interest rate there compared to the decreased interest rate here in Econland. So that's the answer to letter B. Letter C then says, consider the foreign exchange market for Econland's currency. Based on your answer in part B, what will happen to the international value of Econland's currency? And so they want to show Econland's currency. And I'm actually going to squeeze this so we can do this as a side-by-side. And so, like so, we have the currency for Econland. This is going to be letter C. And then, so on this then, we have the quantity of dollars. I guess we're just going to say that their currency is called dollars. Why not? Econland's currency. Supply of their currency and demand for their currency. And then on this one, do we have a second nation? No, but what we'll do is we'll say like foreign per Econland dollar. That's the way to do this, and that's the exchange rate and then the quantity there. And so based on our answer to B, what will happen to the international value of Econland's currency? Well, remember what we said in part B is that Econland wants to go overseas, right? So for Econland to go overseas, then what that means is that they need to convert Econland's currency into the foreign currency. And so really the best way to do this is talk about the other country here. And then we have supply and demand, quantity. And again, I'm just drawing the base graph here because it's always in my head better to do it this way. So this is the Econland per other or foreign, I guess, quantity of other. We don't have a name for this country. Now, on the AP exam, you would not need this graph. You would only need this one. And so before I do this one, I want to show what happens here. Remember what we said. Econland wants to go overseas. That's what we said, right? So what happens to the other country's currency? If we want to go there, that means their currency is going to appreciate. So this currency is going to appreciate. And what that means is that most likely, almost always, that means demand is going to increase like so, like so, like so. Now, for the record, this has nothing to do with our answer. You get no points for that side. What we want to use this for is because this graph then tells us what happens on this graph, you see. And so Econland then will always do the opposite of this one, right? Because Econland is going to that country, this is what happens to that country. So what happens to Econland is going to be the opposite. And what this means then is that if we appreciated there, we're going to depreciate here. And if demand shifted there, supply's got to shift here. So to show depreciate, the value needs to decrease like so. And so, ladies and gentlemen, here is your answer right there for letter C. This is the graph that you would have needed to have drawn. It says, based on your answer, what will happen to the international value of the currency? It's going to depreciate. Based on your answer, and see, I misread this question. We didn't even need to draw it. I thought we had to draw this graph. It doesn't even say to draw it. So that's my bad. I misread this. It says, based on the answer, what will happen to the value of the currency? Well, it's going to depreciate. We use the graphs to answer the question. And then based on your answer in part C, would Econolands buy or sell its currency in the foreign exchange market to offset the change in currency? If they're depreciating, then what the country is going to want to do is buy up their own currency, because in so doing, they'll decrease the supply back to equilibrium. So the answer for C2 is the central bank will want to buy its currency. And so C2, the central bank is going to want to buy the currency. This was C1 there. And C2, they're going to want to buy the currency. And the reason they're going to want to buy it up is because by buying it up, they're going to shift the supply back this way. Because remember, when a central bank takes money, they just put it in a vault or burn it or shred it or whatever, and they'll shift it back this way. Does it say explain? It does not say explain. So for C2, all you would have to do is say buy the currency. So ladies and gentlemen, this is the answer to number 3 from 2019.